Hello, and welcome to episode 143 of the Casual Try Hard podcast. I'm Bryan.
And I'm James.
And this is a throwback. We're going to talk a little bit about a tournament.
Wow.
Yeah, those still happen.
When was the last time we did that?
It's been a while. So I got sucked into Worlds, and maybe not going through all the results, but I think there are some things that take away when we talk about, to like illustrate like metagaming and stuff like that we've talked about in the past. Mm-hmm. Like this tournament is a good way to illustrate that. Yeah. So if you want to tweet us how you felt about Worlds or anything else going on in the world of Magic, you can get at us at CasualTryPod on Twitter.
Yep. You can also hit us up on Facebook at CasualTryHardMTG, or you can shoot us an email, show@CasualTryHardMTG.com. If you guys are looking to pick up anything from Midnight Hunt, make sure you use our TCG player affiliate link, tcg.casualtryhardmtg.com. Anything you purchase after visiting that link, doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you use that link to get to TCG player, we'll get credit for it. So we would really appreciate it. I told you guys last week that I kind of got my order a little confused or whatever with TCG player, where I thought it went through, but it actually didn't. I figured out what happened is I clicked the PayPal button instead of the checkout button.
Oh no.
So it just had me put my PayPal information in and never actually like completed the sale. So that was a bonehead move on my part. But where I'm going with this is that Saturday I had put an order in with Channel Fireball. As of Saturday, this past Saturday, even putting my order in on Monday, I received all of my order from TCG Player, and I still haven't received any of it from Channel Fireball.
We must have different post office people, because I'm still missing stuff that I ordered on that Saturday from TCG Player.
Really?
Like the stuff that's supposed to come from TCG Player still hasn't shown up.
Yeah. No, I got all my stuff from TCG, but I haven't gotten anything from Channel Fireball yet, and that was ordered 2 business days, I guess, before.
Huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yep. Anyways, use our TCG Player affiliate link. We appreciate it.
Yes.
And if you want to support us a little bit more directly, you can head over to patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG and hook us up directly. Throw a couple bucks in the pot. You get access to our pre-show. You get access to our show notes. And every once in a while, I throw you some cool swag in the mail. And I just put the order in for the next round. So I'll get the last of this past round sent out probably in a couple weeks. And then in December, I think we'll start the next go around. And it's something I think you guys are going to be excited for. So if you want in, head over to patreon.com. Like I said, I don't care how much you donate, how much you have to give. Just throw a couple bucks in the pot there, and we'll include you in the give backs. I also kind of had an idea. I'm not sure like how this Patreon stuff works, so I'll have to figure out the logistics of it. But I might do a raffle kind of thing. I've got a kind of test print Casual Try Hard playmat that I had printed, and maybe I'll try and raffle that off of Patreon around Christmas time. That might be kind of cool. So if you want in on that, if I can figure that out, head over to patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG and sign up. Also, we have our YouTube channel. There's a link in the description. It's Casual Try Hard MTG on YouTube. Head over there. We do box openings, and you put out draft videos. If you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, head over there, check that out. And we have our Discord. It's probably the best place to get a hold of either of us if you want to have like any kind of conversation and not just like a quick back and forth. Link for Discord's in the description. It's also on all our social media. And I have one more thing that I'm going to ask of you guys. Well, 2 more things I'm going to ask of you guys, our loyal listeners. Number 1 is we have finished up our Playing in Paper series. We're all caught up with everything that we wanted to talk about this summer. And we're kind of in a weird spot that I haven't been in for like 3 months, where we're out of things to talk about. So now is the time. Like before we start Crimson Vow spoilers and set reviews and all that, If there's anything that you guys want to hear our opinions on or questions you want answered or whatever, now is the time. So like I said, any of the above ways to get a hold of us or in Discord, let us know what you want to hear about. The second thing I'm going to ask of all you guys is to help us spread the word. If you know somebody that could use a hand learning how to play or getting ready to play, point them to that Learn to Play series. If there's anybody you know might appreciate our content, we would really appreciate it if you told them about us. Help us grow our listener base some.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
There have been some people that have tagged us in tweets or people like, hey, how can I learn how to play? And it's like, haha.
Yeah.
People like these guys. I'm like, oh, yes, thank you. Yes, us guys.
Yeah, these guys, we're awesome.
Yeah, we
Spread
are
the
awesome.
word.
Thank you. Oh, so my order from TCG Direct, I just checked, is awaiting delivery scan. So it has not been updated since October 10th. I have no idea where it is.
It's probably because today was a holiday.
Oh.
It's probably at the post office waiting to be delivered.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's probably what that is.
So, yeah. But I ordered mine the Saturday before you from TCG. So I don't know, like, if being a mile away, you have, like, a more, like, with it post office than I do.
I don't know. Is yours Merle's Inlet or is yours Sacristy?
I don't know. I think it's Merle's Inlet, but I'm not 100% sure. So there you go, the behind the scenes of the post office drama.
Dun, dun, dun.
Where are my cards? Yeah. So, all right. So Worlds. First of all, I started watching it. They had been on Limited Resources. They'd been talking about the fact that they were going to have draft.
Yeah.
And so I was interested in like watching the draft. I was fully prepared to just like zone out and miss it, but I was on sick baby duty, so because he's a baby and he's always sick, and so
Fantastic.
I was like, okay, I'll click this on, and like I watched the draft, and like I've drafted the set enough, I kind of like could get a feel if like decks were good or not, and like what I would have taken in that seat. So like that was interesting. It's like okay, and then like I was watching Standard on and off, and I was full of regret because did you go pick a champion?
I didn't even know you could.
Yeah, so they let you go pick your champion. I was like, who's the best player in the field? It's PV. So I just picked PV again to go back to back and get me like 6 free packs. And the other choice I had was, I was like, oh, I'll just pick Strosky. And I watched Strosky go 7-0, and I was like, oh, I should have picked him to be my champion. Like, bummer. But, like, the thing that got me was, I don't know if you followed any of it, Yuta Takahashi.
Yeah, that's who won, right?
That's who won.
Yeah.
So do you know who you know who Yuta is?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yuta is famous for playing fairies in Modern.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's like the fairies master, right?
Yeah.
And he started his draft 03.
Oh, that's not good.
And then I'm pretty sure did not lose a match in Constructed.
Really? Just one out?
He went 7-0 and then I think he won 11 in a row.
Wow.
He won all of the Constructed matches in to get to 7-3.
Yeah.
And then won the upper bracket and then won 2 matches to 0, I'm pretty sure, against his opponent. And just watching how happy he was after he got to the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, like this really matters to people. Like this is good to see because it's been such a long time. I feel like since like we've seen Magic matter to people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I know there have been tournaments, but like I think that even the people in the MPL didn't care about like half the tournaments that they participated in.
That was certainly the impression that I got.
right? So it was like super nice to see. I was just like, oh, like he cares so much.
Yeah.
It was super nice and refreshing. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So just watching him and just watching his joy,
Yeah.
making the top four, and then like when he won, like he didn't react. He didn't know how. He just like sat in silence. And like it came up like so you'd think like okay, like I won. Okay, it comes up Victor. Like it didn't process.
Yeah.
Like he was unable to like process like that he won. And it was just like, "Oh yeah, this is what pro Magic is about."
Yeah.
And now or you know, if you guys remember when Toral Toffel Severin won the Modern Pro Tour and like, you know, half the country of Germany came out and like carried him around.
That's because he's a little guy.
It's true. but just like
I mean, if it was like Kai, I don't think they'd have been carrying him around.
no, or like Brad, so we can't pick up a bear in a human suit.
Right.
Right. But like it was just like, oh yeah, like this matters.
Yeah.
And so it was great. And then like, you know, apparently like Riley sold him out because after the interview he was like, oh yeah, like he was like shaking and then saw that he had to do the interview and like was like, all right, focus, and like did a very like professional good interview. And then apparently just immediately started running around his room screaming once the camera cut off. And it was like, God, this is so nice. Also, he apparently has a very substantial collection of beta Magic cards.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think because he top forward, he bought a beta Lotus.
Oh wow.
Like, he has beta Volcanic Islands and stuff. Like, he's much like when Mangu won and just spent all of his $1 million on like power.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's doing the same thing. He's just like, I love Magic. I love old cards. I want to own all of the black bordered old cards. Let's go.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, awesome. Exactly. And it's like, it's been such a long time. And like, we need to get back to that. Like, ideally, like in person at some point, but just like events people care about.
Yeah. How was the draft to watch? Is this the? I mean, I don't even know. I guess I'm so out of the loop. Is this the first tournament where they've been able to do like a pod draft on Arena?
Yes,
because that's not a thing that's typically done, right?
That I've seen. It is the first time. So the last time they did a draft on Arena at a high level event was it the World Championships that Toffel was in? I think it was. Maybe. Where they did the draft in paper and then had them build the decks on Arena. Yeah. This you could actually watch the draft on Arena. Mm-hmm. There was a weird visual bug, but every so often, for just like a few frames, all the cards would go red with check marks in the top corner. It happened like 2 or 3 times, like to the point I was like, is Paulo using one of those weird like draft tracking softwares?
One of the bots to see how many are in your collection.
Yeah, or like, you know, the
pick
like,
order checker.
Yeah, here's the LSV like ranking of this card or something. I was like, that'd be really weird to not turn that off for the World Championships. Like, just hard uninstall that guy for the afternoon. But other than that, like, it was good to watch. Like, after each pack, they would go through and show you what colors people were in.
Yeah.
So you could get a sense of what the table looked like. Because they had done the drafts, I think, on Thursday.
Okay.
And then it gave them time to do production on it for Friday.
Oh, cool.
So you weren't watching the drafts live, I don't think. I think they were recorded the day before. You
Yeah.
watch the gameplay live, but let them like do the graphics and everything like that. I'm pretty sure. And then like later on, like again, I was like watching on and off. They did do a thing where like they put everyone's like recorded draft, like all 8 of them, in
Like on the screen at once.
on the screen at once. Now
Huh.
I don't, and so you could like just watch all the packs go around. Now I was on my iPad and like doing other stuff, so like I just looked at it and was like, this is really busy. But I'm sure like if I like had time to focus, you could like see the pack come around.
I mean, that's kind of something that I've always wanted to do, like in real life, is just do a draft while like watching everybody's picks. Like have everybody. Obviously, you'd have to do it with like a bunch of friends so that like there wasn't any like ulterior motives or anything. But just have everybody draft like face up, so you can like work through pick orders.
Yeah,
Like with your friends, just to like kind of get a better idea of how a draft functions. So that's really interesting that they did that. I'll have to go back and see if I can find that. I would be very interested in watching
yeah.
that.
It was like I think it was either Saturday or Sunday that they had it up, but they might actually have like because sometimes they do like production stuff where they might have links like in the magic.gg in the coverage section.
Yeah.
So you might be able to like see that. But they did it. They followed PV and they followed Manfield's draft, as like their featured drafters that they like watched all of their picks and like talked about them. But they did have everyone's like feed.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So like the draft games were whatever. They were draft games.
This the worst part of limited is actually playing with bad limited decks.
Yeah. But the thing I wanted to talk about, other than like it was cool to see someone who's been playing Magic for like ever, and like really loves Magic win, right? And like stereotypical like the like nicest, like most respectful person, like he's Japanese, like they have a stereotype to live up to.
Right.
But like Kai Buddha like tweeted like congrats to him, and his response was like, this means I take these words very deeply. Like as in my childhood, I bought the Kai Buddha
World
Championship deck, and that's what started me playing Magic.
Wow.
Or something along those lines, or like that's what set me down this path or something. And I was just like, this guy just like, understands the history of the game and like just really cares.
Yeah.
And, and like he's
deserving of the win.
Yeah, deserving of the win. And like, you sometimes get a feeling that people play and like, they're good at Magic, but maybe they don't love Magic.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like, Yuta Takahashi is just like jamming fairies in a modern league right now.
Just because that's what he does.
Yeah, just because he wants to like mismind click someone.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, turn 2 Bitter Blossom, let's go. Right. And people are like Dragon Rage Chandler is like, Bitter Blossom, let's go. I don't play any cards that don't say fairy on them. We're going. But yeah, it was just nice. So the other thing, so after the limited stuff was the constructed part of the tournament. And it was a 16-person tournament.
Yep.
And
small field.
Very small field. And what a small field lends itself to, right, is it lends itself to metagaming.
For sure, especially when you know the participants.
Yeah, because you know what they're likely to play.
Right.
Right. And it's also super weird, like, maybe...
Although I probably wouldn't have put PV on mono green aggro.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would have either. But what I was going to say is, like, everyone ended up testing with everyone else.
Yeah.
Right, so, like, it's a 16-person field, and, like, so people were like, all right, we're the 3 Japanese players. We're gonna test together, and we're the 4 Japanese players. We're all gonna test together, and 3 out of the 4 of us are gonna play like a very similar deck.
Yeah.
And like, oh hey, like we're the Check House people, and whoever we tested with, we're gonna play the same deck.
Right.
Right. And I've always wondered, like, where's like just the person like that's just like, yeah, I have friends that are pretty good at Magic. I don't want people to know what I'm playing. So I'm just gonna test with them. It's just always weird to me that it's like you couldn't find anyone else to like con into being like, can you care can you care about this for me and like jam some games?
Yeah.
It's always just like, oh yeah, like because Paulo tested with what is his name? I'm blanking on it. Sam Party.
Yeah.
And they both played mono
Seth,
green.
I'm guessing Seth was on mono green.
And maybe Seth as well.
Yeah.
So they all came to the conclusion that mono green was what they wanted to play. So like you could see a lot of people just ended up on like the team deck.
Right.
Which is I always think is funny. It's like there's just one person who's just like doing their own thing. Remember when Kavartek would just show up with like wild questing beast piles?
Yes.
And just like would smush people and everyone's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm playing a hasty 4/4 and then playing a Vivian and making it a 6/6 and then killing you with it.
I'm playing things with all of the text.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, I guess that's good. None of us thought of that. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, though they're different, I think you can, like, break the format into the Epiphany decks and the not Epiphany decks.
Yeah, for the most part.
Right? Like, that was basically the tournament, was you had Grixis Epiphany and Is It Epiphany, right?
Yep.
They were trying to go over the top with Epiphany, but also with in different ways, where Grixis was trying to like use Leer as their way to like go over the top in addition to Epiphany.
Yeah.
Is It was just trying to copy Epiphanies.
Right.
And they're like, what's better than taking 1 turn? Taking 2 turns. Or taking 3 turns.
The Is It decks had a better like beatdown game plan too, though.
Yeah.
Didn't they? Because they ran the eggs.
I
don't think they. Oh, I guess
they sideboarded them.
Yeah.
The like the Sifka deck, which was also the Strosky deck, had no creatures in the main deck.
Yeah.
They had like Sifka had 3 eggs and 2 Goldspan dragons. I think Strosky was similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Aaron Hushenbeth, there we go. I think he was on the team deck for them as well, and he was no creatures in the main.
Okay.
So they didn't have an alternate plan. Now the like I think like Eli Cassis, he was on Grixis. He had like 1 smoldering egg and the 3 Leers.
Yeah.
Jan Marco, who tested with Eli Cassis, 1 egg, 3 Leers.
3 Leers.
Yeah, so they all were kind of on that same kind of thing, but they were all trying to. Okay, Gabriel Nassif.
Nassif as well, yeah.
Same way. I think they all tested together. Funny story, Nassif actually timed out in one of his games. Yeah. It was off camera and people were like, and they were like, yeah, Nassif just timed out.
Wow.
Now there was one person who was on a slightly different list, I'm assuming, who was on, of Is It Epiphany, who was on 4 eggs in the main. So
didn't the winning list had eggs, right?
So
yeah, 4 eggs, 4 dragons.
So Utah's list, they kind of classified it as dragons.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So the difference is like basically the the only way you can win the game in a lot of the Is It decks is like
Hollow
making
Storm Giant.
Hollow Storm Giant, making devils with Burn Down the House,
Yeah.
and the birds from Epiphany, where like Yuta's deck was more fairies,
Yeah.
right?
True.
It was like keep you off balance a little bit, right? Actually had like like point removal, like Dragon's Fire, and you know, things of that sort. Dragon's Fire, and I think he had, where are they at? Thundering Rebuke.
Yeah.
Right, because he wanted things that dealt 4 damage because of mono green and to
Yeah.
kill dragons.
Yep.
So his was more of like a tempo deck. But all these decks, I think, there were, of the 16 decks, I think 10 of them, no, of the 16, I can actually figure it out. Yeah, 10 of them played Elrond's Epiphany. Is It
Sounds
Dragons?
like there might be a problem with the format.
Is It Dragons played 3.
Yeah. Mono White played 1.
Mono White, or is it Azorius Tempo?
Well, yeah, the Azorius Tempo is mostly Mono White.
Yeah, Splashing Blue, and it had 1 Epiphany.
Yeah.
Just because, why not? I got islands. Yeah, so you've got this field that you know going in that there is this deck that is just going to like go way, way, way over the top of you, and could possibly just not let you take turns.
Mm-hmm.
Stratsky had a turn where he was like, Galvanic Iteration, flashback Galvanic Iteration, so it copied.
Mm-hmm.
Play Elrond's Epiphany, make 6 birds, have 3 turns, kill you.
Wow, that's a lot of mana.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super late in the game, but it was just like, yeah, do. Right? Where, like, there's a chance that you just never, like, can ever win.
Right.
Right? You're just like, oh, I don't get to untap when I lose. Because, right, they also get to activate Hall of the Storm Giants, like, 3 turns in a row.
Yeah.
You're like, here's a 7/7. It's like, oh.
That's gross.
Right. And then you have the Lear decks that have the, I'm going to Elrond's Epiphany you. But also have the, if I untap with Lear, you can't ever win.
Right.
Right? Because they're just like, all right, I will, have you discard your hand. I'll cast a bunch of removal. Like, you can't beat my Lear.
Right.
Right? So you've got these decks that are going to go over the top of you. Is It Dragons? Somewhere in between. Right? Kind of like the closest to mid-range is probably Is It Dragons and Temur Treasures. The 2 decks in the
like
finals.
You said, it's tempo-y.
Yeah. And then you had the decision of the mono green players, the mono white players, and the Azorius Tempo player that I just want to try to get under this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I know that if this game goes to, like, turn 5, I probably lose.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure I get them dead before turn 5. And
I don't know why you'd pick mono green for that though, because the deck doesn't really do much powerful until turn 5.
I think the reason that you pick mono green for that is, one, I played. So did you play any of the Worlds event on Arena?
Just enough to get my wins. I really didn't care about any of the decks.
I played a lot of mono green.
Okay.
And if you thought that there was going to be mono white as a counter to Is It Epiphany, that matchup's a joke.
Yeah.
You're everything you have is just 1 power and toughness bigger than everything the white deck has.
Yeah.
Right? And I did pretty good against the Is It decks. Right? The deck, you have this weird thing where they have to have a sweeper or they die. Right? They have to have Burn Down the House or the game ends. And you're also just getting all this incidental value as the game goes on. We talked about in the pre-show, Werewolf Pack Leader, like you drew an extra card at some point. Or
Yeah.
you have this Azeka's Chariot chilling out that's going to like make you an army.
Ranger class makes anything a threat.
And Ranger class also lets you recover after a sweeper.
Yeah.
Because, right, you have a chance. If you have a chance at some point, you're like, well, I don't want to commit another card to the board because they're dead next turn unless they draw a sweeper. I guess I'll just spend my mana to activate Ranger class.
Yeah.
So then if they sweep you, you can, like...
Rebuild real quick.
Rebuild, yeah. So, like, it's weird that it is aggressive. Like, it's not a mid-range deck by kind of any... It shifted a little more mid-range with, like, Chariots and Wrens.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, it's mainly, like, 2s and 3s, and this got 4/4 drops and 5 drops,
5 drops.
Depending on the build. PV was on 4 Chariot, 2 Renin 7, which is what the version I played.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, it's all, like, 2-drop stuff and 3s. But it does go... It's able to go longer than, like, your typical, like, aggressive deck. So I think that's what... Right, because if you go, like, Pack Leader into Troll into Chariot, right, you're going to, like, draw an extra card. They have to sweep you, or if not, you win.
Yeah.
So it is... I think it's because it's good against white, and it has the ability to, like, stick around, as to why you'd pick it as opposed to, like, mono white.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure. I haven't played enough of the latter. The matchup against, like, Grixis, it didn't feel bad. So you're like, your mono green, mono white is just trying to get under people. And then, like we've talked about, there's really not room for mid-range.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Everything goes to the top of you. And you might think that Team Treasures is like a mid-range deck. It's kind of almost like a combo aggro deck, which is like a weird set of words to say. Great. But hear me out. Like, if you have just Parasentinel on turn 1, right? And then either of your 2-drops, either Prosperous Innkeeper or Magda,
Yeah.
you can play a dragon on turn... You can play a Goldspan Dragon on turn 3.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
right, so it just has all these hasty threats that allow you to, like, once you get swept, right, you can just, like, slam another haste threat, right? So it has 2 Reckless
Make them
Storm
answer it.
Yeah, you have 2 Reckless Storm Seekers, and then the Goldspan Dragons, right? And if you have, like, Reckless Storm Seeker out, like, that makes it so, like, your Moonveil Regent
Has haste.
has haste, right? Like, it just gives you...
And also, if you have a Chariot out, anything you play has haste.
Exactly. So you have all these ways to, like, insulate yourself from sweepers.
Yeah.
But as opposed to, like, mono green, where you don't have the ability to... You don't have, like, that haste threat, right? They know that if you, like... If they sweep you, that you can't kill them next turn, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have, like, a Chariot, right? That's the only thing they have to worry about. Or, like, if you have 2 lands up, so you can, like, throw your Old Growth Troll token back out.
Yeah.
Right. And it was splashing blue because, drum roll please, it had to play negates to not get clowned by Elrond's Epiphany. He played 2 negates in the main, and then 2 disdainful strokes in the sideboard. Those were his only 2 blue cards.
Yeah. Had to add an entire color just to play against Elrond's Epiphany.
Yeah, to not get clowned.
Yeah.
So, right, I could see where, you know, having the acceleration of, like, Magda Jaspera Sentinel, right, to get to Goldspan Dragons on turn 3, or get to Moonveil Regents on turn 3 consistently was good. But this was, like, the closest to, like, a mid-range deck, but it's still, like, kind of an aggressive deck where you're just trying to, like, be like, here's a Goldspan Dragon. Can you beat it? And, like, you know, if they say, you know, a lot of the, oh gosh, what are they called? The Izzet decks really didn't have a way to beat it.
Yeah.
Right? The Izzet decks, they were like, I'm going to divide by 0 you, or I'm going to Fading Hope, or maybe I have a Demon Bolt in the main or some on the sideboard. But, like, game 1, it's just kind of, like, not a thing I can deal with.
Like you said, the bounce spells are awkward against hasty threats.
Yeah. I mean, all they were trying to do was, like, hold on for dear life to get to, like, what's it called? To get to, like, 7 or 8 mana so they could, like, copy an Epiphany.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it wasn't as good. Right, the Fading Hopes were, like, great against mono green.
Yeah.
Right, where you're just, like, they, like, play a dumb thing and you're, like, Fading Hope you. And then they play another dumb thing and you're, like, divide by 0 it. And they just never get any traction. And by the time they stick their first threat, you're like, okay, well, now I have burned down the house and I'll take a little bit of damage as you, like, build out. And then I'll just kill all of your stuff and be super far ahead. And this game is now super easy.
Yeah.
Right. So, right, like, they knew going in that the best deck was Izzet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or some version of it. And so, right, everyone either decided to make the best version they could come up with of Izzet, or make
something they thought would beat it.
Something they thought would beat it, which is, like, where the Grixis Epiphany decks, like, they played Duress. Right?
Yeah. So there's only one reason you play Duress.
Right? Is so you can try to get an Epiphany before they foretell it.
Yeah.
Which, another thing, like, putting foretell on this stupid 6 mana, like, extra turn spell, so that makes...
That was the problem with companions.
Yeah, like, you just can't interact with them?
Yeah, it's a card you can't interact with.
Yeah, like, you have to have interaction on turn 1, or you just don't get to interact with it.
Yeah.
Super fun. But, right, they kind of took it as, like, instead of copying Elrond's Epiphany, if you let me have my Leer, it doesn't matter. Right? Like, I'm just going to beat you with, like, the sheer card advantage. So, again, this was another deck that played Fading Hope, because they're just like, I need to get to Leer with, like, the board in some semblance of clear, and then I can just, like, Leer you out of the game. Like, oh, you have 3 creatures? Well, I'll cast these 3 Fading Hopes in my graveyard, and that's going to give me more time. And eventually, I will, like, Elrond's Epiphany and cobble together the win. So, you know, if you know that the best deck is, you know, big, over-the-top, rampy thing, right, what you have to do is, like we've talked about, get under them, right? Try to go low. But the problem is that leaves you vulnerable, right? So if you play mono white, right, if you've decided that, okay, I think my best thing to do is to be low to the ground and get them dead, and then you show up and play against mono white, or, you know, the Temur Treasures deck, your deck's not set up to play against mono green or Temur Treasures, right? Like, you tuned your list to beat one deck. And, like, if the pairing gods are not with you, right, you're
going to have a bad day.
You could have a really bad tournament, right?
Yeah.
Right. The mono white players, right, if they thought they had a decent Izzet and Grixis matchup, like, they made the right call based on how the metagame shook out.
Was Grixis, like, even on the radar before this? Like, before deck lists were out?
I don't think, though I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if it's one of those things that was floating around, and it like, you know, just got better.
I hadn't seen it until, like, the Grixis Leer decks. I hadn't seen until that, like, the event on Arena.
Yeah, so it may have just been that was kind of a rogue deck that they thought could be good against Izzet, because, right, you're going to tear their hand apart. and it like in sideboarded games, they were playing Go Blank. So they still had the copy spells as well, right? So they were able to, so they could do things like they still had Elrond's Epiphany copy, in their deck with Lear, but they also had stuff where you would see people do like what's it called? Elrond's they like would cast Go Blank.
Yeah. And just empty your opponent's hand.
Yeah. And it also like let them get cards out of their graveyard.
Yeah.
So, right, so your opponent has like a memory deluge that they're going to flash back. And you're just like, Go Blank, get the 2 cards that you got with it, plus get...
make sure you're not going to flash it back.
Yeah, get your copies, or get your... Oh, you use like Galvanic Iteration early on to like copy a spell. Well, now I'm going to make sure that you can't flash it back.
Yeah.
So
what's up with the Celestis? It seems like an odd include.
I think they were saying, if I remember, like they wanted the ramp, and just the fact that it had like a million words of text that were like mildly relevant.
Yeah.
Right. There are a number of times where like, you're playing against your like control opponent, right? And they don't cast any spells on their turn, and they got a free loot, and they could get rid of like a removal spell, right? Like, oh, it's game 1. I know that there's not a removal, there's not a creature for me to kill,
target,
so I can get rid of this removal spell. But like they also had a bunch of 1-mana interaction, right? Duress and Fading Hope. So there was a number of times where they were like, I'll play Celestis on 3 and then Fading Hope your creature.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, so it gave them... So now on 5, they have the mana to... Or on 4, they have 5 mana, so they can get ahead that way.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Though, like, some of them only played, like, 1 Burn Down the House. They didn't play a ton of Burn Down the House.
I mean, I guess you don't need to if you can double all your removal spells with Lear.
Yeah, like later in the game, if you can be like... So, like, they had... So whose list is this? This is Gabriel Nassif's. He had 1 Bloodchief's Thirst as removal, and then he had a Cinderclasm, a Prismari Command, a Demon Bolt, a Cathartic Pyre, and a Power Word Kill.
Yeah.
In the main. So it was like, I have random thing that I can get, and be happy like casting it a second time. But like it's one of those like I just kind of have a toolbox in my deck, and hopefully I draw the right things with all my 1-ofs, or I can dig through with the Celestis to find the things that I need.
That makes sense. I guess it makes sense with Lear too, because you can discard something and then still cast it.
Yeah. Probably the deck that was like most out of like left field was the blue-white deck. I'm trying to find it. Right, that is one that like I had not seen. The Arena Decklist podcast, loved it, thought it was great. But like they pointed out, and this is something to consider, like the deck looks neat, right? And so Jerry was like, "Oh yeah, I played a ton of it on the ladder. It is really bad against random." Right?
Yeah.
Like if you're playing this against like a random deck, right? It is made very much to be like, I want to be aggressive to get under Izzet, but I'm going to play Malevolent Hermit as a way to perhaps counter a big spell. I'm going to play, Redain to like make the mono green players have their lands come into play tapped.
Yeah, slow them down so you can get under them.
And then they also had 3 concerted defenses. This was Noriyuki Mori's deck.
Yeah.
Had 3 concerted defenses, which is bad spell pierce.
Yeah, really bad spell pierce.
Right?
Although I guess like not every, but most creatures in the deck have one of the party types. No, that's not even true.
No. There's Legion
Most of
Angel.
them don't.
Legion Angel, the Hermit.
Luminarch, Aspirant, and Elite Spellbinder.
Yeah, so only a handful. About half. Right, so it's somewhere between like Force Spike and Spell Pierce.
Spell Pierce.
Somewhere in there. But right, what is that for? Oh, your opponent's gonna like take their turn and spend 7 mana or 6 mana to like to play a spell. You're like counter it, win the game.
Yeah.
Right? But like against just like random things, like this was very much tuned to, beat like the Izzet decks. Like if you, God forbid, you play against a deck that has Frostbite.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, oh, I can't ever win. They have one mana removal. I'm done. Right. Or like you play against mono green. I think I did lose to one person playing blue white. But for the most part, like it just doesn't line up well against like mono green. So right, if like the ladder's full of mono green, like this deck is just gonna get like destroyed, right? Because every creature in mono green is bigger than every creature in this deck, and like costs 1 mana less.
Yeah. Your point about like the deck not being good against random is, I think, kind of the bigger story to draw, or kind of what you were trying to say about like all of these deck lists in general. And that's that like all of these lists were specifically tuned to play like against each other.
Yeah.
So like if you're interested in taking one of these decks for a spin, like the best place to do it kind of was that little event that they ran, because you're going to have to make changes and concessions to these to play them on the ladder.
Yeah, I don't think you need to for mono green.
Well, yeah, I mean that deck's pretty much just mono green.
Yeah, but no, I think that like mono green works.
Yeah.
Mono white probably, but it might not be good against an open field.
Yeah.
Right? Where if you don't know that 50% of the deck games you're going to play against Izzet, you probably don't want mono green or mono white. I'm sorry. And like I think that the Grixis and Izzet Epiphany decks are super inbred.
Yeah.
Right? That again, like
same thing with that Teamer Treasures deck.
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, he added a whole color just to play against the Epiphany decks.
Yeah.
Like if you play that deck on ladder, you don't play Teamer, you play Gruul.
Yeah, and you're just like, I'm just gonna like Gruul smash people.
Yeah.
And hope it's good enough. Now, if you get to a point where like every other game you're playing against is Epiphany, maybe you're like, okay, I need negates. Yeah. Right? And I mean, if you're hard targeting Epiphany, like your negates become Test of Talents.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, you know what? If an Ezekiel's Chariot resolves, I can still beat it. Don't care. But if an Epiphany resolves, I'm donezo. So I'm just going to play Test of Talents and hope that's good enough.
Yep.
Right? So I think this was just like a really good illustration of like how in like a small field or, when you like have F&M, right? Like, how a small field you can like really pick decks for what you think's going to show up.
Yeah.
And where like this happens in Pro Tours, but you're trying to guess where the metagame is going to be for like 400 people.
Yeah.
And unless there's a Simic, a 3-mana Simic Mythic, you don't really know where the field's going to be to like 70% certainty.
Yeah.
But if there's a Simic Mythic, you know where it's going to fall. Right? But the decks get so tuned to a point that it kind of falls apart when you go into a bigger field. I mean, we saw this in older tournaments, right? Remember?
For sure.
Oh, gosh. It was Shadows Over Innistrad block Finkel's like Seasons of the Past, like
Oh, that
black,
deck was
green.
so sweet. I loved that deck.
But it was just like it was very like it was good for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
Then it
then
was
like
very not good.
everything
I
just
wanted it
moved
to be
on.
good though.
Yeah, and everything just moved on. It was like, yeah, this isn't a thing you can do anymore.
Yeah.
And like these decks are, and I think this has happened more in these arena tournaments than has before, right? Remember when the pros used to like make the format?
Yes.
Now it's like they just like see what's like at the top of the ladder, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll start with like mono white. And right when the PT final was LSV versus, oh, what is his name? I could see him, Andrew Ellenbogen.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were just both on mono white because for like the last week and a half before the PT, mono white had been doing really well.
Yeah.
So we're just mono white gamers for 2 weeks. And like the metagame hadn't caught up.
Right.
So it was just on mono white. Like that used to not be the case, right? It used to be like you would show up and be like, oh wow, like what cool decks. And that was the reason to watch like the Pro Tour, right?
Absolutely.
The format was new. You wanted to see what the pros would like churn out.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the metagame for a while. And those decks would float around.
A month or so at least.
Yeah. And now, like, by the time they have these events, it's just like, yeah, we've played 75 million games on Arena. Yeah. We know what the matchups are. We're good. So it was a good watch. It was, like I said, enjoyable to see people caring about Magic.
Yeah, I tried. I didn't watch any of the early stuff. I tried tuning in on Sunday. And I guess I tuned in at the right time because I tuned in for Strasky's Spikefield Hazard.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I saw that, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm done after this.
Okay,
I didn't watch it anymore.
So Strasky was dead on board.
Yeah.
And he's playing Jean-Emmanuel Duprat, and he attacks, and Strasky plays a divide by 0.
Yep.
Leaves up 1 red mana, and I do believe at that point he had 1 Spikefield Hazard in the main, and there's 1 on the sideboard.
1 on the side.
So I don't know if he was at 2 Spikefield Hazards. I don't know if it was game. I think it was game 2.
It was game 2.
If he had 1 Spikefield Hazard or 2 in his deck at that point. But he casts a divide by 0 and uses the loot mode.
Yeah, so instead of getting a lesson from the sideboard, he looted instead. Which is something that people forget about sometimes, I think.
Yes. And what did he draw off the top? He drew a Spikefield Hazard.
Yeah.
Killed a Magda and went on to win that game.
Lost the round, but yeah.
Yeah, lost the round.
Yeah.
Lost the match, but he won that game.
Yeah.
So Strasky, I think we talk about variants sometimes, and so before talking's hard. So he won all of his constructed matches. He was 7-0, so he won all his limited matches, all his constructed matches over the first 2 days.
Yep.
Right. And then day 3 came, and he could like not buy a win.
Yeah, he
Like
just couldn't catch a break.
Yeah. So he played against Grixis Lear in top 4. And I missed the pre-show or the pre-match like interviews. Mm-hmm. But apparently Jan Merkel, who he was playing against, was like, yeah, this match game 1 is completely and totally unwinnable for me. I cannot win. And Strasky was like, game 1 is completely and totally unlosable for me. There's no way I can lose it. Got clowned game 1. His hand was complete and utter trash. Like the whole game. Like just like it was like, what's the worst card I can draw here? And he drew it.
Yeah.
And he lost to the one of Burn Down the House.
Oh, man.
His opponent just cast Burn Down the House, made 3 devils, and was like, all right, hit you for 3.
Yeah.
And just rode the devils to victory.
Wow.
Like, just never drew, like, didn't draw his own Burn Down the House to kill it. Just didn't. Nothing could have possibly gone worse for him. And like sometimes that just happens, right? Where you're just like, oh, well, I mean, I've definitely had some limited matches where I'm like, this deck is absurd. And then it's just like, oh,
1-3.
1-3. And it's like, oh, I played Magic in 2 of these matches. I was 1-1 in matches that I participated in, and 0-2 because I cast no spells either game. Cool.
Right.
You're like, oh, I just need to hit my 3rd land drop. And you're like 12 cards deep in your deck and you don't have a 3rd land drop. And you're like, how is this possible?
Frank Karsten told me this shouldn't happen.
Yeah. It's astronomical.
Yeah.
Right? Or like, you've drawn, I had a game yesterday. I drew 13 lands. My opponent drew 6.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I see. You have cast 6 more spells than I have. Right. But like those things happen, and like it doesn't make Strosky any worse of a player.
No, definitely not.
That like, there were definitely some times that, he played suboptimally, and he admitted that. He was like, I wasn't playing well on Sunday and my draws were atrocious.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes you can overcome like being not at the peak of your powers because you draw because you draw like a god. You're like, you know what, I need to get out of this. I need to like divide by 0.
Hazard.
Yeah, divide by 0 and get my 1 spike field hazard. Oh, cool. Right. So he had that, but then he also had like, mull to 5 or keep a 2-lander, not hit my 3rd land.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. And it's just like, well, these things happen and you're like, oh, I don't have a 3rd land, but it's fine. I have expressive iteration. And it's just like, here are 2 7-drops in a gold span. Yep. And you were like, no, this was supposed to be like, give me 2 lands. Why did you do this to me? Expressive iteration. And so, like these things just happen. And so like, those are the times that separate like the really great players from the good players. Is one, when their deck just gives them the worst possibles, they can
you can still cobble together a win.
Yeah, or like make it competitive. It's like, oh, you made it to turn like 8. I would have like been dead 3 turns ago with like what your deck did to you, right? And like they're able to kind of like compartmentalize and say like, hey, you know what? That last game was trash, but that's fine. Like I've got to like regroup and like do the next one.
That's why we play best of 3.
Yeah. Unless you're on the ladder. And then it's just
that's right. Well, and it's all best of 1 all the time.
It's all best of 1 all the time. What's the sideboard? That's the place that my lessons live.
Your companion.
And my companion. Gosh. I'm gonna be so okay. I hope that like when Gavin's 10, Magic will still exist in paper. And like I can teach him Magic. But I'm also not going to be happy when I have to explain to him why he has a Loris in his sideboard and why it's the best possible thing for him to do.
Why that's always your 15th card?
Yeah. Why is it? Why do I always have a companion as my 15th card? Because it makes no sense not to. May I introduce you to either Jagantha or Loris? One of these 2 cards will be in your sideboard. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this to you, child. But yeah, it's just one of those that like you watch it and like we all knew and he knew that like he was drawing awful, but like you could not tell by like the way he played. Right? There was definitely, oh gosh, who was it? It was Maury. Kept a hand and then like didn't draw like a color of mana and like lost the game, right? And so the next game he should have probably bottomed he went to 6 and should have probably bottomed a land. but bottomed a spell instead, and then like drew land. And it was like, yeah, I feel like you kept the extra land because you got
because
burnt,
of last game.
like last game.
Yeah.
And like, you know, he was going back and forth, and the commentators were like, should probably bottom a land. Oh, he's maybe bottoming a spell here, and then bottom the spell, and then drew like land. It might have been in limited,
Okay.
where like he could have played like a Luminarch aspirant.
Mm-hmm.
Not a yeah, is that what it was? The one mana 1/1 that gains life. Could have played that, and instead bottomed it, and then drew like 2 straight lands. And like wouldn't have been like, it's a 1 mana 1/1. It's not like a huge impact, but it would have been like a thing. But like definitely like you could see it was like in his head. But like, you know, you could see like Strosky that, you know, he was still focused even though things weren't going his way. It's also fun to watch people play in their house for just the sheer fact that like they're oftentimes way more emotive
at home than they would be like in an event hall.
Yeah, like they draw and they miss their land, and they're just like, you can see them just kind of go like throw their hands up and just be like, right, because they clearly forget that they're on camera, and they're just like, come on, right? And so like that's funny. It's like, oh, I do that too. I have like 2% of the traits of a world champion because I too also get mad at
2 hands that go in the air.
Yeah, go like, come on, man. It's like, cool. I tweeted this. It did not get as much traction as I had hoped. I just pointed out that I really like the fact that no one at the World Championships bothered to clean up their room before they streamed.
Just like empty milkshakes on the table and stuff.
Yeah, it was like, what's his name? Nassif had like a lamp, like laying on its side, like on a pillow, unplugged with the cord, like stretched across the room.
What?
Yeah, it was just so random. Deprav is just like in his bedroom, and there's just like all this stuff piled up behind him. One of the Japanese players just had like a stack of deck boxes behind him, just like piled up, kind of like I have like beside where we record, just like a mess of cards. And like, oh gosh, Seth Manfield had this giant like U-shaped desk that just had like a collection of like junk and trophies on it. He had like a binder of Magic cards, like one of the 4, like the like, you know, playset binders that have like rows of 4. One of those that like was just behind him, so I don't know if he was like flipping through it in between matches, but it was open at one interview, and then the next one it was closed. Like the next time he like was so on camera,
was obviously doing something with it.
He was obviously going through it, like, oh, I guess in between matches I'm gonna sort cards or something, and I'm like, maybe it's just me. But I've been like, oh man, like 20,000 people are gonna watch this. I'm gonna make sure that like behind me like is neat.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to like push a vacuum. Just like put that shit on the floor.
Yeah, just move it so it's out of frame. Or like I would have spent like the $40 to buy like a crappy like green screen or like a backdrop.
Yeah,
just so I could have like put something up and been like, ta-da!
You could like, play in front of a wall of you.
Yes. I don't know how Wizards would take to me setting up my camera like that.
Well, but I don't think they have a choice, do they?
They'd probably yell at you, but you're like, this is what you get.
That's right.
There were
it's
a couple
the last Worlds. What are you gonna do? Fire me?
Yeah, there's a couple people. There are a few matches where like Sam Pardee just didn't have his camera on.
Oh.
Like, there might have been a technical issue, but they just had his, like, still, like, Worlds photo. And that was it. Like, no, I was like, are they not doing video anymore? And then, like, it was like, oh, the next match had video. And I was like, I wonder if it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So, it was just funny. I was like, okay. So, do you want to talk about Seth better known as Saffron Olive.
Well, I had an idea as
Okay.
we were going through that first section because we went a little bit long on that first section than what I thought we were going to do. Why don't we make it homework?
Oh, there we go. I'm good at
Yeah.
assigning homework. You can take this one from me. Go ahead.
Okay.
Like,
So Seth had an article that came out, I think it came out yesterday. So it came out on Sunday, October 10th. That is called Power Creep, Spectral Bears, and Elrond's Epiphany. And I have some... This article was kind of like a... I don't know what you want to call it.
a revelation.
A revelation. Yeah, that's a good word. It made me have an epiphany. I've been kind of back when we did the like what a card costs or the value of a card or card evaluations or whatever. I was having a problem relating what we knew about resource management and value of cards and like how to bring that into the modern age. And this article answered the question for me. So I don't want to rehash everything that, somebody else has already done. He put the legwork in to figure it out, not me. It just meant a lot to me what this article said. So instead of rehashing it here on the show, why don't you guys go read the article and then tell me how you think it relates to card evaluation going forward in, we'll call it 2022.
There we go. And maybe we can touch on it after everyone's read it and is on the same page, because you sent it to me and I read it as soon as I got home.
Yeah. Like I said, it's really weird that Seth, better known as Saffron Olive, is the one that is giving me inspiration, because that's really not where I thought that this question would get answered.
Yeah.
The whole article is pretty good and it all relates together, but the last part of it is something that I would see in, one of the great Magic articles of all time, like Who's the Beatdown or Philosophy of Fire, or like any of those, classic Magic theory articles. This last part is. So all you guys go out and read it. Hit us up, and I guess we can roll this into our conclusion. But hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, email, Discord, wherever you want. I think Discord would probably be the best way. That way we can all kind of talk about it together. But let me know what you think about this, because, like I said, this was like a real, oh my God, this is it. This is the missing piece for me, at least.
And again,
we talked about it in the pre-show a little bit, so
we did. And if we're gonna plug Saffron Olive stuff real quick, he's been doing a thing. If you at all are interested in Magic history, he keeps putting up MTG Goldfish has a shorts page now, or they do short videos, like the 1 to 2 minute videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
and he's been doing a series about where deck names come from.
Oh, yeah.
And he did my favorite deck name, or one of them, which was Tin Fins.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told you where it comes from.
I think we talked about it on the show once too.
Yeah. But it was just so great. He had all the clips from C-Lab.
Yeah.
And everything. It was just this is excellent work.
A+ content, Saffron Olive.
A+ content. It is worth the minute or two to watch it and then be like, do I have an HBO Max subscription to go watch C-Lab? Because I do. And 6 months ago over the summer when I was home with Gavin, I rewatched every episode of C-Lab from start to finish.
Yeah.
That was just on in the background for a week, was just C-Lab.
Yeah.
So, definitely a look into Magic's past, when we used to get to have fun deck names.
Thanks, Cedric. You ruined our fun.
Yeah, exactly. Now, admittedly, like when you go back and, you know, you read the deck names from like a tournament when they do the receivables,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, the hokey pokey, and like,
Cephalid breakfast.
yeah, and you have like no idea what that means or like where that name came from, but it's like, you know what? The game had character back then.
It did.
And it wasn't just like stripped down and homogenized. It was like, oh, I can be like original and interesting.
Right.
Right?
Instead of the colors and a card name.
Yeah, exactly. Or aggro, control, or mid-range. Sultai
Right.
mid-range. Sultai control. Sultai aggro. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Right? Also, if you ever get to participate in a live event and they have a deck list, this is for Cameron, but the podcast running joke is every deck is something stompy.
Yep.
Every single deck. You're playing Infect in Legacy, it's Berserk Stompy. You're playing Eldrazi, it's Spaghetti Stompy. Right? Like everything stompy. Just like we used to just put the most random names as deck names. Just because. I think one of my
they're
like,
just going to change it if it gets posted anyway. So
yeah, but might as well have fun, right?
That's
See
right.
if you can sleep like Merit Lage Stompy past someone. They'll be like, what is this? Like make them reread the deck list twice. Why is it Stompy?
We'll call it Mompy.
Mompy.
Yeah.
There we go. It's a Mompy deck.
Yeah.
All right. So, with homework of learning about power creep, it's illustrated by 2 cards. And
2 very strange, like a lot of cards you wouldn't think play a role in power creep.
yeah, or like
Really, really weird.
or illustrating it,
Yeah.
right?
He does a
Right.
great job though. Like power to him. I almost want to shoot him an email.
You should, or like tweet
should.
at him. Like
Yeah.
he does. He says that he reads every email he gets.
All right. Well, maybe I'll send him an email then and thank him for my revelation.
Yeah. So, with all of that, after you do your homework and you learn about both C-Lab and Tin Fins,
Yeah.
you can tweet us your feelings at CasualTryPod.
Yep. You can also hit us up on Facebook at CasualTryHardMTG or email us show@CasualTryHardMTG.com. Real quick, we have our TCG Player affiliate link if you're looking to buy any sealed or any product or sealed product or cards. Please use that link. It'll help the show out. We also have Patreon if you want to support us a little bit more directly. Patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. Chip a couple bucks in, get access to our pre-show and our show notes. Get access to our givebacks when I do them, and maybe this contest thing if I can figure out how to run it. Stay tuned for that. And post your homework in our Discord. Let's have a conversation because, like I said, this was really cool, and I think that's probably at least going to play a part in the episode next week. So do your homework and stay tuned for that.
All right. And with that, we'll catch you on the internets.
We'll catch you on the internets.